What if the moment you were humiliated in front of everyone turned out to be the same moment your entire destiny changed forever? It was a quiet morning in the marble lobby of the Silver Crest Hotel, the kind of place where every light gleamed like glass and every mistake could cost a job. Mia rushed through the doors, her heart racing, her apron half-tied. She was late again, 5 minutes late to be exact. But in this place, 5 minutes felt like a crime. Her father's medicine bills filled. Her thoughts, her little brother's school fees, her landlord's warnings. She could barely breathe as she picked up her tray, trying to blend into the rhythm of the perfect smiling staff. And then he walked in, Ethan Cross, the billionaire investor. The one everyone whispered about, the man who bought companies and destroyed them before lunch. Tall, sharp, dressed in a grey suit that probably cost more than her year's rent. The hotel had prepared all night for his breakfast meeting, but the schedule slipped because of one missing waitress. She ran to his table to serve coffee. Her hands shaking, the cup trembled and a drop spilled on the edge of the saucer. His chair scraped back sharply. His voice hit the air like a blade. "You are late," he said coldly. "Do you know what time means to me?" She froze, whispering. "I'm sorry, sir, there was traffic." He cut her off. "Traffic," he repeated, his tone filled with disbelief and anger. "Do you think the world waits for you, Miss Waitress? You work here for me, not the other way around." The whole room went silent. Everyone stared, no one dared move. She felt her cheeks burn. She wanted to disappear. Her manager stood in the corner, helpless, afraid to interfere. Ethan's voice softened, but in a way that made it worse. "Tell me, do you have any idea who you're speaking to?" She lowered her eyes. "No, sir." He leaned closer. His words low enough for only her to hear. "I built this hotel from the ground up. I don't tolerate weakness." And then his voice stopped suddenly mid-sentence. His gaze locked on something at her neck, a small golden chain barely visible beneath her collar. His expression changed confusion, then shock. His hand trembled slightly as he pointed. "What is that around your neck?" She looked confused. "This, sir, it's just my mother's necklace." He stepped closer, his anger gone, replaced by something raw. He reached out, not touching, but close enough for his voice to shake. "Where did you get it?" She hesitated. "It was my mother's," she said quietly. "She passed away a few years ago." Why, he stepped back like the air had punched him, his face pale. "What was her name?" "Mia Collins, sir." He took a slow breath, his voice almost breaking. "I gave that necklace to a woman 25 years ago. She was my mother's nurse. Her name was Claire Collins." The room blurred around her, the walls, the people, the sound of cups. Everything disappeared. She whispered, "That's my mother's name, sir." He stared at her like he was seeing a ghost, his eyes wet suddenly, his voice barely a whisper. "Then that means you are my daughter," he said so softly that even the chandeliers seemed to stop breathing. Mia blinked as if the world had tilted. "What do you mean, your daughter?" she whispered, her throat dry. He sank back into the chair, his hand trembling against his forehead. "Your mother, Claire, was the only person who ever saw me when I was nothing. He said I was a broke intern. She worked at the old hospital downtown. We used to talk for hours. She wore that same necklace every day. I gave it to her when I left for New York. I promised I'd come back, but by the time I did, she was gone." Mia's knees felt weak. She shook her head. "No, this can't be true. My mother never told me anything about you." He looked up, his eyes glassy. "She wouldn't have. She wanted to protect you from me. I wasn't the man I am now. I was cold and obsessed with money. She left me when she found out she was pregnant. She said she didn't want her child growing up around greed. I searched for her for years, but she disappeared." The staff still stood frozen across the hall, unsure whether to move or pretend they hadn't seen the richest man in the city break apart in front of a waitress. Mia's voice quivered. "Sir, please stop. People are watching." He looked around and stood abruptly. "I don't care," he said. "Come with me right now." She hesitated, but something in his tone felt like truth. He led her through a private corridor to the top floor where the walls were lined with photographs. One of them showed a younger version of him with her mother smiling under a tree, both wearing the same necklace. Mia covered her mouth, tears spilling. "How do you have this photo?" he whispered. "Because it was the only thing I kept when I had nothing left. I looked at it every time I won another deal, every time I lost another piece of myself." He turned to her, his voice softer than a breath. You look just like her. She didn't know whether to scream or cry. Everything felt unreal. You think this makes up for everything she said? You think finding out you have a daughter means you can erase the way you just treated me? He lowered his eyes. You're right. I can't erase it. But I can start making it right. Now he walked to a drawer, opened it, and pulled out a thin folder. Inside were documents, property deeds, company shares, and one letter written in a faded hand. Mia took the letter carefully. The handwriting was her mother's. Her fingers trembled as she read. Ethan, if you ever find this, I hope you have learned that love is worth more than power. Tell our daughter I kept her safe, not from you, but from the world you were building, because I knew she would remind you who you really are. Ethan turned away for a moment. When he spoke, his voice cracked. I thought I was untouchable. I built empires, but I forgot what it felt like to care until I saw that necklace. Mia wiped her eyes, still trembling. I don't know what you expect from me, sir. He smiled. Weakly, I expect nothing. I just want to know you. She looked at him long and hard and said, then start by apologizing, not as a billionaire, but as a father. He stepped forward slowly, his eyes full of guilt. I'm sorry, Mia, for every word I said, for every second I wasted chasing things that meant nothing. She nodded quietly, still unsure if she could forgive him, but something inside her softened for the first time in years. He pointed toward the window, the city lights stretching endlessly beyond. The glass. I spent my whole life building this view, he said, but it means nothing if you're not in it. She turned to leave, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe one day I'll believe you, sir. He stopped her before she reached the door. Mia, she turned. He said, tell me one thing, will you let me earn the right to call you my daughter? She didn't answer, but her tears did. 3 months later, the Silver Crest reopened under a new name, the Collins Foundation, dedicated to supporting single mothers and children in need. Mia stood beside Ethan on the stage, his hand trembling as he cut the ribbon. She smiled faintly and whispered, Mom would have liked this. He nodded quietly. She would have loved it. Sometimes the richest hearts are the ones that remember too late that love is the only thing worth building. If this story touched you, share it with someone who still believes forgiveness can change a life, because maybe they're just waiting to see their own necklace of hope. That evening after the ceremony, the crowd was gone. The lights dimmed and the sound of applause faded into the empty hall. Ethan stood by the window, staring at the city he had once ruled like a king. Now he looked smaller, softer, almost human. Mia walked up behind him, the necklace catching the faint light, her voice gentle. You really did all this for her, didn't you? He smiled faintly. No, I did it for you. She gave me a reason, but you gave me a chance to finish what I started. She looked at him, unsure whether to believe him, years of pain still heavy between them. He turned toward her. You don't have to forgive me, he said quietly. I just need you to know that I see you not as a reminder of my past, but as the only part of it that still matters. She took a breath, the words trembling in her chest. Maybe forgiveness isn't something you ask for. Maybe it's something you earn every day. He nodded slowly. Maybe that's why I wanted you to run this place. Not me. Her eyes widened. Run. This. He handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter of appointment, with her name printed in gold. Director of the Collins Foundation. Her hands shook. I can't run this, Ethan. I'm a waitress. He smiled softly. You're not a waitress anymore. You're the reason this foundation exists. You understand what struggle feels like. You'll know how to help them. She looked at the paper, tears in her eyes. This is too much, he said gently. It's exactly enough. Weeks passed, and the hotel transformed into something different, no longer a monument of wealth, but a place of purpose. The restaurant served free meals every Sunday for families who couldn't afford them. The ballroom became a shelter during storms. Mia worked every day from dawn to night, learning not just about management, but about people. She saw faces that mirrored her old life, tired, frightened, and full of hope. And she realized maybe her mother had planned this all along. One evening she found Ethan sitting alone in the garden, holding the same letter her mother had written. He looked up when she sat beside him. I still hear her voice. He said, sometimes when I close my eyes, she tells me not to waste time chasing ghosts. Mia smiled softly. Maybe she's just telling you she's proud of you. He looked at her, his eyes kind for once. Maybe she's proud of us. The wind moved through the trees softly, and for a long moment they sat in silence. Two broken souls stitched back together by something stronger than blood. She reached for his hand, and this time he didn't pull away. He whispered, "Thank you for giving me another chance." She smiled faintly. "Thank you for finally seeing me." And as the lights of the city glowed behind them, Ethan knew he had built more than an empire. He had built a home, and Mia finally understood that forgiveness isn't a gift, it's a bridge you build from both sides. If this story made you feel something, share it with someone who needs a reason to forgive or to be forgiven, because sometimes one small act of understanding can turn even the coldest heart into family.